I'm now going to hand you over to the wonderful Federica, who is going to be leading us today. So please give our panelists a great big App Promotion Summit Berlin working from home. Welcome to the virtual stage.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much. I'm very excited actually to join this panel since I've been joining App Promotion Summit for some years now. And that's the first time that I'm moderating a panel. Thank you everyone for joining this panel. I'm Federica, product specialist at Remerge, and we are an app marketing company, and we help app businesses to achieve their fundamental business goals. So the topic of the day is incrementality, and we're going to discuss that from a data science point of view. Incrementality is an experiment, just like the experiments, just like the clinical trials that pharma companies run to estimate the effect of a medicine. Incrementality is the same, where we basically want to see what's the effect of a treatment on a group of users versus a group of users where no treatment was given. And since it's an experiment that should have a very scientific approach, we decided to invite some scientists to this panel. And with that said, I would like to give a very warm welcome to our talented panel and ask them to introduce themselves and their company. Alicia, do you want to start?
Yes, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Federica, for the nice introduction. I'm Alicia. I'm a data scientist from Socialpoint. Socialpoint is a global leading mobile game developer, and with over 2 million unique daily users, and we're about 300 people in our headquarters in Barcelona. And I'm part of the marketing analytics team there.
And Johannes.
Yeah, I'm Johannes, senior data scientist at Remerge. Just like Federica, headquartered in Berlin. We are a DSP, so we try to buy the best slots to make to do app retargeting. So focus on in-app advertising and on users that already had contact with our clients, and specialized on incrementality, and with a background in like a PhD in marketing and machine learning, and kind of this fascination with how to make good decision just drove me over behavioral economics, data science, machine learning into uplift modeling.
And the last one, Yue.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yue, and I'm working for Delivery Hero as senior data analyst. And we are a global food delivery company, and we have brand in 30 or 40 countries. I forgot a lot. And we are hiring. And I've been working in this business, like data scientist business, about 6 years, and now working for our marketing tech department. So basically provide some tech support for the marketing department to help they make better strategy, and incrementality test is definitely a very important part of our jobs. And actually, and we work with our partners to like launch the test, to check the results. Yeah, and as a data scientist, join this work heavily, and Johannes actually is one of our partners. Yeah, and I've been like learning mathematics and statistics as graduate degree, and since then I've been involved into data science. Well, I think this is an amazing field to work into, and as well as the incrementality. That's from my side.
And before deep diving into the main topic, I would just like to ask you something that I'm pretty curious about, and that will be, how did you get into data science? Just if you'll give me like a reason, let's say.
So I'm just going to start. Yeah, my original background is actually in marketing, and more specifically actually in performance marketing, and yeah, I was exposed to a lot of recommendations from all these smart platforms that we used to work with, like Google Ads, for example, would recommend me, oh, you should optimize this and that campaign like this. And I was always very interested in the algorithm that actually came up with those recommendations. And I started looking into that black box, or wanted to learn more about that black box. And this is how I actually got into data science, and eventually went back to university. And now, very lucky enough to combine those two passions, marketing and data science, at my job at Socialpoint. Yes.
And you, what about you?
Yeah, like I just mentioned, I was learning like mathematics and statistics as graduate degree. And since then, at that time, it was only a major, but then I found it's very amazing field to work into. Like the most fascinating thing is that you can always find some rules from a bunch of like probably at first sight, very messy numbers. Yeah. By using some method, by using some algorithm of data science, of course, we have no way to know all the rules of the universe, but we can definitely get a little glimpse of them. I think that's part, for me, is very amazing.
And Johannes, last one.
That's pretty cool. That matches a bit like how I thought about it. I was starting in undergrad, thinking about how do we make good decisions. So I started with philosophy and economics, and then became more and more technical, going into data science to kind of find out how we could automate that and basically make sound decisions that hold up against the evidence. That got me then into business intelligence, and then a PhD in the data science field, more hardcore statistics. And yeah, this idea that there is rules that we can follow, and there is some concepts how we can base on evidence these really fundamental decisions on strategy and also operational decisions. That's still fascinating even after a couple of years.
Nice. That's very interesting to see all the different backgrounds and how you eventually got into data science. But now back to the main topic. So the problem that we have when it comes to running this type of experiment is that there are actually no written rules, let's say. There is still not standard. And even if like this concept of incrementality is not new, but the application to advertising is relatively new, let's say. So the questions that incrementality answers are also many. But in that case, in your specific case, if you could share, what are the questions that you would like to answer with incrementality? So why did you start looking at incrementality, and when did it become relevant to measure the success of your marketing campaigns with incrementality? Alicia, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we started looking into incrementality in the course of our retargeting engagements. And so we've always done retargeting in the past, but I guess we sort of never really put the focus on what's the uplift, and we wanted to learn what's our return on our retargeting efforts. And this is how we started doing some research and built a whole project around it. And then through the research, I mean, you mentioned it before as well, and actually implementing the incrementality, we also realized that this seems to be the new standard, market standard, or like a new innovative way of measuring the uplift. But also, I agree with what you said before, is that the tools that it uses, or that are actually behind this word, or this buzzword that we of incrementality, is the actually tools that we've used before in marketing. So comparing it to, for example, to an A/B test, I guess next to the significance, what has become, or what's in the focus now as well, is also the economical impact, and looking what we can, what the economical impact can be of such a treatment. And yes, this is how we started.
That's a very good point there, saying this, the methods are actually quite also. Both Remerge and I, not at Remerge at that time, started about 3 or 4 years ago. because it seemed pretty clear that for most of marketing, the organic behavior is critical. And then for Remerge as a retargeting player also, it's even more important because we've seen these users, we know that they are active, or there's a chance they will be active again. So this organic component is really important. And whenever you have that, it's just critical to look into the same methods that we use for medical trials, for example, not for the vaccines as well, right? Where something organic can happen, people get sick or get healthy by themselves, but then also we can improve that. And if we're interested in that impact or the change that we are causing, and that's really what these decisions are all about, right? To change some behavior that might be occurring organically anyway, or we want to have it at the right time, or we want to have more of it, then incrementality is just super important. And to me, it was really surprising when I started out at that time also, that was not already standard, and that there's still so much work to be done to make it a standard and to improve on these methods, because it's been so like, yeah, the traditional methodologies in economics, especially where I'm from, where people have been trying to do A/B tests and also work around when they can't do A/B tests, try to find solutions to that problem for 50 years. And just now people are kind of looking into that again to apply that. So I'm really happy that we're looking into that, try to push that more and push academia and industry into that direction, kind of solve the actual problems that we have in RTV rather than just the problems in research.
And
I think I'm the last one. So of course we start looking into incrementality. Like the very big reason is we want to know more precisely about ROI of our marketing campaigns. Well, especially retargeting parts is miserable. I think our company is like Delivery Hero, start looking into incrementality for a very long time, and I'm pretty sure it started like 4 years ago before I joined here. I think I think the first thing is like marketing campaign itself is very important. It's very meaningful for our product. For example, when you're entering a new market, like no one will use your product unless you launch marketing campaigns, so that people can get to know you. And even after, like later when the market is no longer a very brand new market, you still need marketing campaigns to maintain your exposure. In that case, you can, well, get more revenue. Because marketing campaign is meaningful, that's why I think we spend a lot on launching this kind of marketing campaign. If we don't want to like spend in vain, it's like you don't spend money and you know nothing about this, that's not very comfortable. That's why calculating incrementality based on some tests, like a scientific test, like will be very important. Like, yeah, we don't want to spend in vain. We need to analyze if our spend is truly meaningful. That's the first layer. And the second layer is like, it's also related with our company strategy. Because we are a global company, we have markets in many countries, and different country, of course, the user will have different behaviors. And all of this, like what user like, what user dislike, all of this difference, you can hardly know it like without launching this kind of incrementality test in a very scientific way. That's why I think our company focus a lot on this kind of incrementality test. Even, you know, when design is, when implement is, well, kind of difficult. Yeah, that's from our side.
Very interesting to see like all the different reasons. So as you all said, like there is no standards, but we are working towards it. And again, there is still a lot to do. And that's why sometimes it can be difficult to apply an incrementality, but also to explain that to all different stakeholders within the organization. Therefore, I would like to ask you, when it comes to discussing incrementality measurement internally with all the different stakeholders, what are the questions that you face more often, and what are also the most complex topics that you have to explain to different stakeholders, because yeah, they have all different goals, different KPIs, and also different backgrounds, so that's why it might be difficult to get the buy-in from all of them. And that regards, I would like to ask you first to Johan. So what's your experience at Remerge?
Yeah, surprisingly, at least to me, was that the experienced clients, they know what incrementality is, and they are quite convinced that that's meaningful and that that's relevant. So that's not the question that I get often. But then the details, right, technical details and how to interpret the results, that's something where we get a lot of questions. So when I get the statistical significance, for example, what does that mean exactly, and how do I use that, right? If that's not significant, what does that tell me? If it's significant, what do I do then? What does that tell me? And then everything connected to that. So why do I need to wait for a campaign to until I can look at the significance? What happens if I look multiple times and that changes? So these are all these kind of questions that we get asked on a day-to-day basis. A lot also related to statistics in general, or how does incrementality relate to general attribution, for example. What does it mean if the attribution numbers are different from my incrementality? What if we see a lot of attributions, for example, which sometimes happen, but then we would internally say, actually, that's not as much as we do. We can see the incremental effect as smaller or bigger, right? But what if it's not the same? What do we then, and which do we trust, and how are they related in some way, and how do they relate? And then if I get a result on that, why is there always this uncertainty attached to that? Why can't you just give me one single number? Very practical questions that we get. More recently also, this whole incrementality, how do we do that when there's no ID traffic after iOS 14 really hits next year? Can we still do it? And we can say, yes, we can do it, but it's a bit different on how we do it. So this is something that people also worry about.
There actually, I can already see some questions coming in, and one of the questions is about that. So we'll have time to answer that later on. But now I would like to ask also, what do you think about that?
My experience is like, because I work more like a consultant from data science field for my stakeholder, which is our marketing department. So the frequency question I faced is both business field, like from business and from data science. Like, for example, before a test, the stakeholder will always ask me, like, can we make the control group smaller? You know, because of course we don't want to like lose the users who would convert it if they got exposed to our campaign. You know, like 50-50, of course, you will always get the campaign in the fastest way, but probably it's not the best. Yeah, that's the first question I faced. And second question is like, is the calculation from our partners make sense? Well, do they, like, their way of splitting target group and the control group make sense? So the thing is, yeah, we know that splitting targets and control group is not an easy task. It's like you need to make sure that the users fall into two groups are as same as possible. That's, yeah, really not an easy task. So yeah, we have to kind of sit with our partners to let them explain like very carefully about how they split the target group and control group, like by using the ghost ad, whatever, this kind of detail. Yeah, that's before test. And during the test, the question is like, can we pause the test now? And is our test already significant? That's the top two questions I faced. And after the test, of course, is like how to explain your test results. Kind of the most complex topic among all of this, I think I will like go along with Johannes, is the statistics things. It's like, for example, when the test is significant, but well, only on a very small margin. For example, p-value is like 0.051 or whatever. Wait, it is small one. Yeah, okay. 0.049, sorry. And usually it takes like times to let them know that why we couldn't pause the test immediately. So like they are always confused by the difference between like point estimate and the confidence interval. You know, let them know what is confidence interval is a little bit, well, struggling. It's always take time. Yeah, that's from my side.
Yeah, I think that's very, very interesting to learn from you guys, because I think we're still quite early into this project, and I actually haven't haven't been in lots of discussions with stakeholders about what could be problematic or what they don't understand. So maybe to add some value from another side would be where we struggled with in the beginning setting up our methodology is actually finding the right way or finding a way to measure incrementality fitted to our strategy, or to our retargeting strategy. So who are the people we want to talk to? Do we want to talk to people who churned months ago, or do we want to talk to people who might be still active? And and depending on that, it was quite challenging for us to find the right methodology. And we actually what we struggled with is attributing cost. Like, are we looking at transactional data, or maybe cohorted data, and that sort of thing? And when it comes to discussing with stakeholders our first results, I remember one difficult topic, or not difficult topic, but I mean explaining why it would be better to look at test versus control rather than control versus exposed. I think to marketers, exposed always looks a little bit more tempting to look at because the numbers are a bit nicer, but in the end, you're comparing apple with pears, I guess, when looking at control versus exposed. Because obviously there's the selection bias of the algorithm, and I think that there was some convincing work needed from the technical side, maybe, to the marketeers.
I completely agree with all you said, actually, because I found myself in that situation. I was on the other side, and I was a bit struggling to understand exactly all this new concept, statistical significance, p-value, and all of this. So, and I have to be honest, that took some time. So I can totally relate, let's say. So according also to my experience, it takes some time, to get familiar with the concept and with the application of this concept. But in that regard, it's also important that results are very clear, and they can really trust the results. So how do you, for example, how do you verify, how do you confirm that results are certain and significant? And how do you communicate this degree of uncertainty to the stakeholders? For example, how do you do that at Delivery Hero you are?
This question, first of everything is still you need to double check that all the procedures are correct. Like I just mentioned in the last question, check with the partner, the way of splitting target and control group makes sense. That is very important. And if based on the condition that you can confirm that your partner do is all correct. For my side, first, I need to confirm with stakeholder for only one metrics that they would like to check, which means we need to define what is conversion at the very beginning. So the thing is one test can have many types of conversions. Like for example, checking the front page can be one conversions type, and adding to the cart can be another conversion type, and also finally become an acquisition or order can be, the third type. So we know they kind of together form a funnel, and each of them could be metric that you want to check, and also each of them could be population of other metrics. So as data science, I need to force the stakeholder to focus only one metrics, because it's very possible that if you check acquisition is significant, but adding to cart, it's not significant in this case. Stakeholder, they are very uncertain, can I post it? You need to tell them that only focus on one KPI you really want to check, and other, second step. Okay, and that's from stakeholder side. From my personal side, I will use in both the traditional Z-test or T-test, as well as Bayesian approach to make sure that the result is really, really stable enough. So I kind of internally, I do both tests, and as long as both of the tests passed, I will confirm with the stakeholder, yes, this is stable enough, it's definitely significant, you can post it, our campaign is not the waste of money. And regarding other uncertainty, I will always claim the significant results only applies within a certain range. So for example, when you launch a lift test, if you only target on the user who age from 20 to 30, you observe significant results. Stakeholder is very satisfied with it, but that usually means you like the same results might not hold if you apply the same campaign to 40 to 50 age population. That's, yeah, might not be the case. And also beside this, the seasonality, the different creative can also cause difference. So all of these are uncertainty, and you really need to double check with stakeholder to notice all of them. Like, yeah, that's my experience.
What about you, Alicia?
Yeah, I would, well, almost similar to what you said. So what we are, we're still in the, as I said before, in the early stages. So we also, I think, first make sure that the group split by the partners is, you know, the groups are indifferent and that the group split is all right before we go into the test. And then we currently use a frequentist approach where like a Mann-Whitney rank test to test whether there's a difference between test and control. And yeah, like how do we communicate it to the stakeholders? So well, we're planning on, or we're currently reporting p-values, but we also like listening to your to the questions that you get most from your stakeholders. This might be we might have to be reconsidering this approach. So yeah, as I was saying, we're still in the early stages, so there's nothing tested how it works best with our stakeholders in terms of, you know, getting along with the estimations and statistics that we provide them with. But we're certainly open, and as you were saying before, checking it double, you know, having different tests actually, you know, z-test and Bayesian maybe at the same time. This might be a very good approach that we'll be looking at in the future as well.
Interesting. That puts us as a DSP as in a funny position, because I would say we're very flexible in what kind of approaches we use, precisely because we have that difference in approaches. So mostly we want to convince our clients, right? So the companies, that what we are doing is working. And whatever we think is the best test really has also to go with what the client wants us to use to test the results, right? Not necessarily what they want to hear, but necessarily like what they understand and what stage they're in and what they also confirm and find correct. So it really also depends, as you said, what you as clients confirm and find reasonable. So what we do always, so we can easily do is we do chi-square tests, for example, or t-test, the standard frequentist test. And personally, I get that that's where you find most resources, and that's what most people have used in the past. And it's easy to compare. So I think that's not a bad place to start. But personally, my favorite are really the Bayesian methods. Because when you want to communicate significance and uncertainty to a stakeholder, I feel plotting the posterior, so plotting rather than just having this p-value, right, that nobody really understands, just tell them this is significant or not, and they don't get it necessarily. It seems to me it's much easier to give a credible interval and just tell them the effect that we've measured is between there and there. So we can say pretty certainly it's above 0, for example, and it might be 3%, it might go up to 10%, and that's kind of where we're at. And I feel that that's a very natural way to also communicate uncertainty in everyday life, right? You might say I'm 3 to 10 minutes late, and then people kind of get what they expect. They might kind of plan with 5 minutes, but they know it might become 10 minutes as well. And if you want to have more certainty, it's also easy to come back to us and say, let's run the test for longer time, especially with Bayesian methods. Let's do that again for a month because it's not good enough for us yet. We want to know more precisely where we're at. And then I can tell you it's between 3 and 5% or 4 and 6% instead of between 3 and 10%. So that's my personal favorite of running tests with, and it's not really a test at all, but just a range of values rather than a fixed point, which I think for most stakeholders is not what they used to. They prefer to have a single number, but that's just what uncertainty is, right? Is that you can't get the single number and you still have to make decisions and plan.
That's a very funny point. I was gonna use that next time I'll be late to a meeting, and I'll be late between like 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, thank you, but very interesting, actually, super insightful, I would say. But now, once you get then the buy-in from all the stakeholders and everyone is aligned, I think it's also very important to have the marketing team aligned with the BI team, data science team. Then once everyone is aligned, how do you practically conduct the incrementality measurement? How do you run the experiment? For example, according to your experience, Johannes, how do you do that?
Yeah, that took us as a company some time to figure out. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. So the concepts are pretty straightforward, but then how to do that in practice, it requires some like deep thinking about what we actually want to measure. So for example, in retargeting, it's pretty clear that we can address the same user multiple times, right? That routinely happens. We also have a limit on that, but definitely we don't only see a user once. That's why we do the randomization on the user level to make sure that the user stays in the test or the control group. But on that level, we can actually do that. In the past, we used user IDs, right? It's feasible to do that and to make sure that the user is test and control group, and then you can pretty well compare between those groups. One thing that we can do, which is easier as a DSP to do than maybe even for our clients, is this ghost bid methodology that we have, where we really just filter out the people that we see. Just what Alicia said about the actually exposed users. We can actually also do that for the test group, because we also see for the test group who we could have targeted but decided not to because they were in the control group. So we can actually reduce that noise on our side easily. I mean, we also report that, of course, to our clients and say, this is the list, this is what we came up with. So clients can also do that, but really that data happens on our side. So they have to get that from us to repeat that analysis, but it reduces the noise. So we get more precise estimates with less data, which is a big advantage to this intent to treat methodology. The interesting question in this part, I would say, because our methodology is essentially right standard A/B test, maybe different control group, test group size, but randomization. The interesting part is then what do we do when the ID is gone with iOS 14, right? How do we do randomization there? And I would say the general easy answer for that would be we try to still do the same thing. We still try to randomize either on the geo level or on the technical features of the device. And as always, that's easier said than done. But that's actually how we would proceed in the future. So it's not something that's impossible. It's just something that's not as convenient as before.
And since you at Delivery Hero, you've been running this test for quite some time. What's your experience?
Well, my experience, like, first of all, is again, because as Johannes already mentioned, like you as our partners, like put a lot of effort on kind of reduce this kind of noise when you split the targets and the control group, and also like probably put a cap on the repeat time. This kind of thing are all in our like checklist. We need to double check that the users in target group are not go crazy, and also the control group is like the user are really not got exposed. Because the thing is, when you want to test incrementality, of course, what is incrementality? Is the incrementality based on some baseline, and this baseline is our control group. Is although the users not got exposed, but they are very important. So yeah, we need to like really careful about the control group because this is our baseline conversion rate. It's an important benchmark for you. So that's one side. Another side is because sometimes we will have this kind of lift test again and again for one market. So your historical control group conversion rate is also can be your reference to double check if this test like make any sense. Not make any sense, make sense. So for example, usually like if we target on same markets, we target on similar population, the conversion rates of this time this lift test and the historical lift test shouldn't be very, very different. But this is a rule that you need to hold very carefully, because this might only apply for those kind of stable markets. For the new markets, because we know that the people's like the new joiners your acquisition curve might be like this. So in that case, if you have a test in August and you have a test now, their conversion rates might be different, and it also makes sense. So this is very flexible. You need to, well, carefully check. And as third point, it's like we also have some in-house model to estimate the campaign effects. So also like Johanna said, when we test the lift test, like you test it on user level, it's one way. You can use very traditional hypothesis test to tell your incrementality. And also you can use this kind of the aggregated way. So for example, if you are having a campaign in this market, from now to next month. And theoretically, if you create this kind of the counterfactual model, you can see the uplift from the model if you create the model like properly. So that can be one thing to check, to kind of double check if your lift test result makes sense. And another thing is we have the attribution model, help us to attribute all of our conversions back to our touch points. So although the incrementality test, the way, the method is different with how the attribution model calculated, we believe that they should like move in parallel. They shouldn't like always cross each other. Yeah, so we can always put them side by side to make this kind of double check. I think this question from my side, from like client side, is also kind of related with last question, is like how to validate the results. Yeah.
Yeah, from our side, yeah, I just have to agree with the other two. So we for simplicity, we're currently looking at intent to treat method. So it's very simple to implement, and also what was one big point for us, I guess, is the standardization across partners, because as Johannes was saying before, Remerge is so nice. They're very transparent with their data, but we have been actually experimenting with other partners as well, and transparency with data is not the market standard, let's put it like this. So we have also been looking at a methodology where we can actually compare the results with different partners. And yeah, what else did I wanted to say? Yeah, so this is the intent to treat as the methodology that we're currently using.
Cool. And yeah, thank you for sharing your experience with the different execution of this test. Since I see that we have already like a few questions coming in, I would like just to ask you like the last question, and just also for all our audience and for our data scientists, but also like for anyone who's interested in the topic, which research do you follow to improve your methodology, just learn more about the topic? And if you just have to, you will have to name, let's say, a single paper or article or blog that you follow, what that will be. Alicia, for example.
Yeah, so when it comes to research papers or blog posts, so I've been relying on actually mostly blog posts and articles from I would say practitioners. So from you guys, I guess the Remerge blog is a very, very great source for information, and also other third parties like AppsFlyer. They also just recently launched the incrementality tool and have a great guide on different methodologies there. Because when it comes to research papers, are sometimes, yeah, like they're very theoretical, and I seem to be working better with those practical articles. Yes.
And UN?
One part of mine is like very similar with Alicia, is like do some blog reading. We know like now internet is very like good, like you can read like 1 million articles per day. Some article from like Medium is pretty cool, and people always have kind of very sparkling ideas of how to do some coding style, how to do some coding, how to like develop some new method. That's pretty helpful. And yeah, this kind of blog reading is very cool. I'm pretty sure like at the very beginning, I don't know about anything about Bayesian way of checking this kind of incrementality test if they are significant. I think I read the Bayesian way, like all the principle and even some like simple codes from one of the data scientists from, I don't know if Remerge or Smartly, like probably one, yeah. And all of these results are on internet and it's free, so very helpful. And also from my side is, as my working responsibility is kind of analyzing the incrementality of both online and offline channel. And we know that online we can do like user level test, but offline is a little bit hard. And also as Johannes just mentioned, that with this kind of iOS 14 things happened, we can no longer track the device ID. So it's, yeah. So these two cases, kind of offline case and this case kind of like overlapped with each other. In that case, we developed some time series models to do this kind of counterfactual analysis. Well, the counterfactual analysis, I think two packages is very popular now. One is the Casual Impacts package developed by Google, and another one I think is Profits, developed by Facebook. Well, it's a predictor model, but also you can, well, it's a counterfactual prediction. So what my experience like reading the raw code base of this kind of package is very helpful, because you can see like from this kind of the raw code, you can see how other data scientists think about their thinking way of one same question. Yeah, they are all available free on GitHub, and you just need to kind of invest a little bit time to go through it. Yeah, I think that's two main parts from my side.
Yeah, if you have the experience to read the code, these are actually really good packages. I'll also shamelessly say that our blog is, I think, a good, fast introduction to the topic, like on a higher level, understandable to anybody. If you're more interested in the statistics and sort of what is possible and what is the current research and opinion, but also in a readable way, then there's one paper that's called Recent Developments in the Econometrics of Program Evaluation. And program evaluation is just what people mean like A/B tests and what things that we can do by Inlands and Woolridge. So that's actually a readable paper that summarizes, I think, everything. And there's a very cool seminar that's called the Online Causal Inference Seminar. That's always taking place online, I think, once a week, where you get some of the best researchers, I would say, worldwide, just talking about their research for an hour. But that's very state of the art. So that's probably not what everybody wants to do immediately. But that's kind of, if you want to have information on what's currently possible, that's where I'd look for an understandable explanation.
Cool. Thank you very much also for sharing all the different ways that you have to keep yourself updated with all the development on the topic. We have a few questions, so I would just like to jump in the questions, and because they are very different and also very interesting. So the first one has been kind of answered already, but there would be how will you adapt your incrementality models and assumptions for a post-IDFA world? Who wants to answer this?
Could you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. How will you adapt your incrementality models and assumptions on a post-IDFA world? So I guess with the all iOS 14 and updates, like how we're gonna measure incrementality in the future?
So just to, I would say I'd start a little bit, but I think US actually has already mentioned how exactly. You could do that.
I mean, as I said, like it's been already answered.
So the important point I would say is the user ID drops away, and we can't use it for A/B testing, right? So this randomization based on the user level, that's gone. So everything we kind of need to find a solution for is how do we get something, or one way to do that would be, how do we get something that's similar to this randomization, but not using the user ID, using something else? So one general approach would be we use some other technical features. We can still randomize, but we can't randomize so nicely. So we have to find something where we can make small groups that we can randomize traditionally, and people know that from TV advertising. People have done geo tests where they just say each city gets a different campaign, or some cities don't get a campaign at all. And then we can compare how does the traffic from each of the cities or each of the geolocations react. As usually in like the digital setting, we have a couple more options to do that more nicely. We don't have to necessarily rely on geos to do that, which I quite like. But the general idea, I would say, is find a solution to that problem first. Try to replicate this randomization that we can do so nicely with the user IDs on some level.
Yeah, I know from basically this kind of geotest, yes, it's really a very good replacement. But from my knowledge, it's like Google also have this kind of lift test for their SEM, like a search. And they kind of randomize, for example, in one country here in Germany, randomize all the zip code and try to create two filters that's very similar with each other. Zip code or city, they have their geo logic, and to like one in one cluster you buy this kind of the keyword, in another no, and then you kind of compare the difference by using a model. Yeah, I think currently this kind of the privacy thing is like, you know, become very strong, like people are protecting their privacy. So probably in the future like we need to focus more on the modeling thing. Yeah, but yeah, that's all.
Thank you. So next questions, because we have a few, so I would like to cover answer all of them. Another very interesting one is any tips, if you have any tips on how to reduce the statistical insignificance and how to have smaller confidence intervals.
That is a mathematical question. It's like
very technical questions. If you have any tips to how to do that.
Well, I only know theoretically. It's like you collect as more population as possible, then the distribution will become narrower. Then it's more easier to get significant. That's my understanding. Probably Johannes have something to talk.
No, my answer was just a bit meaner, but the same idea. Run a longer experiment is the obvious answer to that. If you can just get more users. You might also want to have a more balanced split. I think you mentioned that as well, that if you have a more imbalanced split, essentially it just means that the smaller group will be more uncertain, right? Because you have less people there. So if you want to maximize what you get out of 1 week of data, you can have a 50-50 split. That's better than having 10% in the control group, better in terms of uncertainty. And then you can start trying to do better statistics, right? You can go from intent to treat to this ghost bit where you filter out the users who were exposed, because essentially if they haven't seen the ad, then there's just nothing happening. We know that there will be nothing happening, right? They're essentially not treated, but we have to do that for the test and the control group, right? That's the important part. So you have to do this right. You can't just do the convenient thing and then make the whole analysis go wrong. And then there's more advanced methods using models, right? You can try to pick up some of the noise, but then it becomes more complicated, I would say. So I think the easiest way would be do a longer experiment, go to ghost bits, or like as close down as you can, filter test group, control group to the level where people have actually seen things, and that should give you a little bit of a boost.
Also, sometimes it's like this campaign is actually useless, it's insignificant, and whatever you do is insignificant. And I think by using Bayesian approach, you can have conclusion that these two groups are actually doing no difference. That's a better advantage for Bayesian approach, because in z-test, you don't have this kind of conclusion.
I think that's actually a really good point, because we've had that question before. So, and I think from business perspective, you don't always want to have significant results. It's better to look at the credible interval, like you says. And just as an example, let's imagine we have 2 campaigns, and we've run an A/B test for a month, and we realize one campaign has an effect that goes from 1 to 3%, and the other might be from 2 to 4%. But kind of your target is a 10% increase, sort of 10% lift. You don't actually care about which of these campaigns is significantly different than the others, because they both don't match. Or if we run a campaign for a year, we might be able to tell you we have a significant effect, but it's 0.5%. You don't care on that level, because even 6 months ago, we could have told you this effect is smaller than 1%. So business-wise, it doesn't even make sense to consider testing it anymore. It's smaller than we would need to run this. That might be a really, the most critical point, probably.
Do you have anything else to add? Do you want to add something, Alicia?
No, nothing to add. Very well explained.
Cool. So next question. The other question would be, the incremental outcomes are usually short term. So how do you look at the long-term effect? And how do you calculate or predict the long-term incremental LTV and payback windows?
So maybe I can.
Yeah, it's a challenge also for me. I want to hear the answer.
Yeah, so because I was actually, that was actually also a question I might have had for you, Yua, because I was interested, because you said that you run different campaigns, and it sounded like there are more so experiments, where on our side we actually do have like almost the campaigns are running for the whole time, and we test significance on a weekly basis, or compare results on a monthly basis, depending on the methodology and the amount of data that we have available. So I guess we are doing it long term. So we're trying to get the long-term incremental uplift from our campaigns, and not only looking at short-term for like a 4 weeks experiment, or so we're looking at actually running retargeting for the whole time, and then testing significance on a weekly basis. I'm not sure if is that something that you do on your side as well, or?
I'm not really sure. I think we actually also try to do this kind of the long-term effect observation. One way probably is like to have this kind of the always on test. I think it's just as Alicia's mentioned. It's like you have a small holdouts group, well, never got exposed, and you have this campaign launched for like 6 months or longer, and you compare the different conversion rates between this 95% like exposure group and this 5% control group. That's one way. Yeah. And another way is will be like too far away from lift the test is like you create some marketing mix model, you check the S-Dog, and this kind of analysis is also possible. But I mean, the long-term effects, how to measure it precisely, I think is kind of a business field challenge, if I'm correct.
It's a challenge for us as well. We do exactly what you two described. So we just run always on tests and make them longer if that's what we're interested in. It depends a little bit, I would say, on what event you're looking at. But for installs, we're pretty sure that the effect is pretty immediate. For purchases, right, or lifetime value, of course, that's a bit of a where we expect that the effect just takes more time to take place. So it is really something that we find important, but it is tricky to do. I'd also say longer experiment duration, longer control group is probably where we're at.
And one last question, which is not incrementative related, let's say, but it's more data science related. And someone is asking, where can the app industry find data science talents, and how can they attract and retain them? That's a very good question, and I'm pretty sure that many people can relate to that. That it's very difficult to find good. I mean, it's difficult in general to find data scientists and good data scientists. So if you would have to give a tip.
Like speaking personally, I would say focus on doing best practices yourself is definitely one thing. So I did read our company blog, for example, and check whether I agree with what we are doing and how we explain it before I joined. Then also focus on explaining why these problems are interesting. So I knew that incrementality is interesting, right? I loved that before I started, even in industry, right? I was in research before that. But I underestimated how many interesting problems there are in this RTB setting. Just we've discussed essentially already 4 or 5 different research topics. Even like the length of the event horizon, that would be a whole research topic I could spend years on to try and improve. So there is actually a lot of really interesting topics that can be done, and I feel that many talents are also attracted to interesting problems. So if you can show that you're actually on a good trajectory, on like you're doing good statistics, you value good statistics and good data science, and you have interesting problems that need to be solved, you're probably already halfway there. You just need to find a way to communicate that to the right people, and then they'll knock on your door.
Yeah, I would agree with Johannes to yeah, signal in some way that you are, you know, trying to, even though maybe they might not be a basic understanding of the statistical you know, setup or something, but like showing to data scientists or aspiring data scientists that you want to do it the right way, and that you are looking at, you know, you don't want to hire this person to sort out all the stuff for you, but instead of rather work together and show that you're interested in as well, and want to make this work. And this would be something I would recommend. Yeah.
My view is like, as data scientist, because how to say, actually currently there are a lot of algorithms are already packed into a library of Python or packaged into R, and basically you can know a lot of models and you can run them, implement them in only one line of code, but probably as a data scientist that's not enough. You like really need to know like what's behind the screen, you know, after you put a one line of code, you need to know what it's doing, like how your number and your result come from. I think that's probably very important for a data scientist, because it's like, for example, like I mentioned, Google have its own like control factor models, time series model, Facebook has its own one. And they both have very different, they are all time series analysis, but they have different methods. Like probably Google is using Bayesian state or whatever, Facebook is using like STAN, this kind of thing. Yeah, I think to figure out why you are using this model here and that model there is is something that you need to, as a data scientist, need to ask yourself, like, why I'm using this model. But not like I can use a model here, I can also use that model. Yeah, a stakeholder will always ask you like why we had this model before and now we want to switch to this model. You need to convince them. Yeah, that's my experience. And also, yeah, when like, for example, hiring the data scientist, I think, well, I also very, you know, I also think that part is important. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we are out of time. Just a minute to wrap it up. So just some takeaways here. That will be that the incrementality measurement, it's an ongoing process. It's an experiment. It takes time and takes time to get results, especially because then you will have to make some decisions according to the results that you get. And it's also important for the marketing and BI team to be aligned. They really have to work together on the execution of the test and the analysis of the test. And the fact that there are multiple ways to execute the test, it just also, it takes time and a few iterations, let's say, to come up with the right setup and the right KPIs, because it all comes down to then getting some reliable results and then making budgeting decisions according to those results. So thank you very much for joining this panel. It was super interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was like the first panel with data scientists, but I'm pretty sure it's not the last one. So I hope to see you again soon for another panel about incrementality.
Be glad to.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Federica.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.